Hey everyone, welcome to another Reasons and Resources episode. So in this one I'm going to be talking about reasons and resources to learn Smalltalk. In terms of reasons, I'm going to be coming at this from a couple of angles. So I think first of all I'll get out of the way the sort of general reasons why somebody might want to learn Smalltalk. Well, first up, it has pure object-oriented principles. So in some ways, if you want to learn object-oriented programming without getting sidetracked, so to speak, and without any distractions, then Smalltalk is pure object-oriented. So if you're looking at, maybe like me, when you go to an object-oriented language, you sometimes use stuff you've learned in other languages as a sort of support mechanism initially, but unfortunately you carry on using some of those things. So it's interesting to do object-oriented programming in a language where it's pure, in much the same way as I found it really useful when I say learning functional programming to, when you learn it in a pure functional language, without any distractions. There's also an influential history component, so it's profoundly influenced many programming languages, and also I think to some degree, GUI, graphical user interface generally. And there's that I think apocryphal story about Steve Jobs going and getting a demo at Xerox PARC of a number of things, one of which I believe was a mouse, an only mouse. The other thing was the graphical user interface, and another thing was Smalltalk. And I'll see if I can find that online. It was part of a TV program I watched years ago called Revenge of the Nerds, and it's based on a book called, I think, Accidental Empires. And there's an interesting interview with Steve Jobs recounting that story of him going to the Xerox PARC demo. The language also has very powerful reflection. And this is something interesting if you've used languages already where you have this ability to inspect and modify structures at runtime. And also there's quite a number of languages out there where you can sort of inspect structures, when you're not running it, or as part of a debug process, but you can actually leverage those sort of things to actually perform modification and dispatch as you sort of go along, which makes dynamism in a language incredibly powerful. Has a very unique development environment. I won't specifically show you in this talk, in this video, but what I will do is I'll give you links to various IDEs so you can see that firsthand. So that makes it really useful. Also, for me, when I first used Smalltalk, I think that was the first time I was exposed to sort of properly to a GUI based IDE that wasn't Visual Basic. So that was interesting for me. And then the other thing, and it's sort of connected with the first thing, is this understanding of core concepts of object-oriented programming. So if you're sort of really having a tough time getting your head around OOP, then I would recommend having a bit of a side quest down a Smalltalk rabbit hole. So what was my reason for learning Smalltalk? Because, it's one that's on my list to revisit, but I did have to learn it back in the day, although I think I spent 6 to 8 months learning it, and it was because of this. It's part of my postgrad diploma in computing and manufacturing, and I elected one of the units to do, which is this M868 Object-Oriented Software Technology, which ran on the Open University from, I think it was about 94 to 98, before they sort of updated the course or changed it to something else. I'm trying to remember if they actually then went over to using Java or whether both were running simultaneously. I can't remember. The course is very roughly divided into 3 parts, and I dug out all my stuff this morning, which I've still got. It was actually one of the largest single folders I'd ever received. Often when folders of materials from the Open University get above a certain size, they normally split them into 2, but this was one big sort of wrap around big plastic binder. It's the only one that's actually fallen apart slightly. Everything else has maintained its integrity. So there's 3 course books. 2 are about 200 pages long, one's just under 100, and the course is divided into object-oriented concepts using Smalltalk, object-oriented analysis and design, and object-oriented further aspects of object-oriented development. The book 3 is a smaller one. I was just looking through the software guide, and I wanted to read this out because this is really funny. So these are the hardware and software prerequisites. I did this about sometime in 97, I think, 96, 97 maybe. You should have the following: an IBM PC compatible computer running MS-DOS version 2.1 or later, at least 512K, that's 512K of RAM, or more if you want to use Windows at the same time, a hard disk with at least 2 megabytes of free disk space. This includes the space required for backup files. A Microsoft compatible mouse. The mouse is essential as the practical activities in the course material depend on it. See below if you use another pointing device. A graphics controller, CGA, EGA, VGA, Hercules or AT&T Toshiba, 640 by 400 standard, and a printer connected to your computer. So for this we also had another book in addition to the course book, and there was a couple of slim ones like the software guide and the course guide, but there was actually a Smalltalk V DOS manual, which I still have, object-oriented programming system, which went through, you know, the actual, you know, the IDE and all the language itself. And that was the book that we were actually permitted to take into the exam. So I think for this there was about 3 TMAs and a final exam, I think. I can't remember how many points this was worth, but I think on the courses I did, it varied between 2 TMAs and an exam, up to 4 TMAs an exam. And I think this might have been a 15-point course. I'm not sure. I only did one 30-point course. It does say 7 point. Oh, there we go. Yeah, 15. So it was a 15. Approximately 150 hours of study. I think that's a vast underestimation for this. Unfortunately, they haven't got around, or maybe they didn't want to actually uploading the materials to their Open University Digital Archive. There is a link here. It appears to be a link because it did actually come with a VCR. I'm sorry. Not with a VCR. That would be silly, the Action Machine, but a video cassette which has object concepts and industrial application of objects, reuse promises, pitfalls in reality, and beyond Smalltalk. So basically how the course sort of broke down is roughly, I would say, because it's in 3 parts and the last part was slightly smaller, you did quite a big chunk on the programming language, then a big chunk on just object-oriented programming design generally, learning all the techniques in the same way that if you say learn database design with the Open University, you'd learn SQL, but you would also learn the actual theory behind database design and all the sort of schema and techniques you can use and the various other things that you need to know to actually design a database before you actually try putting one together in SQL. So yeah, it was pretty cool, very hard, because I was sort of adjusting my mindset from previously sort of working in mainly basic and visual basic into pure object-oriented programming, and I found it really tough. Particularly the fact that you also had to design, the whole thing. You had to do the whole thing in it. So I can remember one time getting picked up when I did as part of it, I had to do like a sort of software specification, and the person who was assessing my TMA complimented me on my sort of procedural skills in terms of, in terms of how you do software analysis and design, not using object-oriented programming, but told me that I basically needed to work on my object-oriented way of thinking in that paradigm, because I, unfortunately, like a lot of people, I was sort of relying on my previous experience doing sort of procedural, systems analysis, which was more in the realms of procedural languages or non-object-oriented programming languages, as a way of sort of getting my head around it, and unfortunately it was sort of coming through in the analysis. So yeah, a bit of a problem there. I'll include links to Smalltalk on Wikipedia, including some deep links there, so you can check everything out. Knock yourself out. I'm not going to go through it too much details there, I don't think, because there's just so much to it. There's what Hello World might look like. Yeah, you can see with the debuggers, a lot of them are, this is a Squeak debugger, but you get these sort of interesting debugger layouts in develop environments for Smalltalk, where you've got these sort of inspectors. If you've used anything like Visual Basic or something similar, you probably might be used to seeing similar-ish things, but this is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for, this is more cascading, much more visual. Sounds weird, doesn't it? Much more visual than Visual Basic. But the drill down, what's the word I'm looking for? The drill down is different. If you've ever used other drill down systems, it feels and looks quite different, from my perspective at least. If we go through and look at some of the stats on the most popular technologies for Stack Overflow, we probably won't find it. Because I always get the feeling that it's sort of been pushed back to one of those languages that are often used to teach, because it teaches you pure form object-oriented programming languages in much the same way as on other courses when you learn, say, functional programming languages or Lisps, you may never use that language again, but it sort of helps you grasp the concepts. So I don't see it anywhere on here, and if I'm not looking hard enough. And if we go through admired and desired, I don't really see it anywhere. So I'm being extremely unobservant. And then top paying technologies. So for many people, it might be like me. You had to learn it because you had to learn pure object-oriented principles, and that was the best way of doing it at the time. It might be purely for historical reasons. In the Tyobe, I think I did see it lurking in the weeds. Yeah. So somewhere in the 51 to 100 area. And these are just in alphabetical order, unfortunately. And is it in the IEE one? I'm not sure. Let's have a look. If it is, it's probably pretty low. Yeah, I don't expect to see it there really. I'll go away. That's why I don't really like using these ones. Yeah. Again, could be missing it, but I don't see it there. Let's get off of there quick. Yep. Okay, so in terms of IDEs, this is quite a good one, Squeak Smalltalk, apparently. It's not one I've used because the only one I've used is the Smalltalk V DOS version, and I did dabble in it again a few years ago, but I can't remember which one I installed, to be honest with you. That's the trouble. So this is a good starting point, and it'll certainly give you a good idea of the sort of introspection and ability to browse things. We've also got Dolphin Smalltalk. It looks a little bit more like sort of thing you might see in a visual development environment, doesn't it? Then we've got Faro, I meant to say Faro. Which is so that's a sort of modern open source Smalltalk environment. We have a framework for developing sophisticated web applications in Smalltalk, Seaside. So if you're interested in frameworks, and particularly frameworks for doing web shenanigans, then this might be a good starting point. There is also GNU Smalltalk as well. If you're a fan of all the sort of GNU stuff and you're used to using some of their implementations, then implementation of Smalltalk 80. As I said, the one that I learned was Smalltalk 5, Smalltalk V for DOS. I'll include this interesting article about the legacy of Smalltalk as well, link to that, Adele Goldberg. And if you go back, you might see certain people sort of in the history of the language, their sort of names, their name checked in various articles. So here we go. Oh, there we go. So that'd be handy. Smalltalk Blue Steve, job is mine. So this is a really useful resource if you've not stumbled across it already. Learn X in Y minutes. So it gives you really sort of nice, succinct overviews of languages and groups together different types of things in the language. If anybody's looked at my Programming Polyglot website, then that's how I sort of often lay a lot of stuff out, or like it to be laid out, which is sort of to group similar concepts together and then sort of run with it. And that's what this is doing in this example. So so you've got a sorted collection and it shows you the syntax for that. So that's pretty useful. And as you can see here, they do have one for Smalltalk. Interesting videos to watch. This one, which is Computer History Museum, Making Smalltalk. Okay, so I'll include a link to that. You've got Auto System Project, Dan Inglis demonstrates Smalltalk on the Xerox Alto, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. And then there's a really good one here from on Developer Voices, where they talk about a particular, variant or incarnation of Smalltalk, and they talk about Smalltalk's history as well. In terms of podcasts, some of these are probably quite old, but they might be worth listening to if you want to know a little bit more about the history of Smalltalk, some of the stuff to do with certain aspects of the language. So this is a bit older, this one, but you might want to check that out. Found an episode on the early history of Smalltalk, where they do a read through of the early history of Smalltalk article. So It's cool if you're interested in history. Unfortunately, I haven't got around to actually doing this yet because I need to roll up my sleeves and modernise my appreciation of Smalltalk, because I don't think me putting up Smalltalk V code or trying to get an LLM to generate Smalltalk V code is going to be very useful to anybody. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but what's good is about the stuff I do is I need to make sure I actually understand what code's being spat out before I like to really commit it to this project. So yeah, that could be a while coming. As you can see, I'm sort of skipping over the stuff that I'm having problems with. So it's sort of doing the low-hanging fruit first. It got to here, and I was on a real roll, and then I basically got to similar, and the wheels sort of fell off. So yeah, once I get to the end, I think the next thing I'm going to attempt is either Fourth or Snowball 4. I'll loop back round and go back through, and then have to sit down and spend a few weeks reacquainting myself with these languages, which I'm looking forward to. But unfortunately at the moment, or again, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a bit absorbed with stuff to do with LLMs, particularly small LLMs, and also basically interacting through APIs. So I need to get that out of my system before I sort of go back and spend a couple of weeks acquainting myself with Similar and Smalltalk and so on. So hopefully this is really useful. It's a pity that there's no digital archive, because it's a really interesting course, even though it was from, I think I did it around 90, it must have been 97 into 98, I reckon. Yeah. So there we go. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.